Today, we're cracking open a historical cold case that's, believe it or not, 1,000 years old. We're talking about Leif Erikson and his legendary journey to a place he called Vinland. It's this incredible puzzle, a mix of myth, hard archaeology, and just that timeless spirit of discovery. So let's open up this case file and see exactly where the evidence takes us. All right, I want you to just imagine something for a second. A lost world found centuries before Columbus, but not by Spanish ships. No, this new world was discovered by Viking explorers. And what if the truth of it all isn't actually lost? What if it's just hidden in plain sight, scattered in ancient stories, and literally buried right under our feet? Okay, first things first, let's lay out the central claim of this whole case. And trust me, it's a discovery that pretty much rewrites the entire timeline of exploration as we know it. So here's the absolute bombshell at the heart of our case file. We're talking about Norse explorers, yep, Vikings, landing in North America nearly 500 years before Christopher Columbus. And let me be clear, this isn't some fringe theory. This is accepted historical fact, and it just changes everything we thought we knew about who discovered the Americas. So the big question is, how do we even know any of this happened? Well, for hundreds and hundreds of years, the only clues we had were these whispers, these hints from ancient stories. So let's dig into our first pieces of evidence, the Norse sagas. Okay, so our primary witnesses are these two ancient texts, the Greenlander's Saga and Erik the Red Saga. And the best way to think about them is like two different witness statements from the same crime scene. They both describe the same basic event, a journey to a new land, but the details, oh boy, who led the trip, when it happened, what they did, the stories don't quite line up. And right away, that's a huge problem from anyone trying to figure out what really went down. And that really gets to the heart of the problem here. See, these sagas, they weren't history textbooks. They were stories, passed down by word of mouth for generations. They were meant to entertain, to make heroes seem grander. And you know how stories go, right? With every retelling, the fish gets a little bigger, the hero gets a little braver. The line between what actually happened and what makes a killer story gets really, really blurry. So the real challenge is trying to tease out the facts from all that, well, poetic license. I mean, listen to this description from the sagas. It just perfectly captures the whole problem. They describe Vinland as this almost mythical paradise, a land of bounty and promise, with fields of wild wheat and grapevines everywhere. It sounds amazing, right? But is that real? Is it a literal geographical description? Or is it just an exaggeration to make this new land sound like a Viking Eden? And that one detail, the grapes, that would become the central clue in a hunt that lasted for centuries. And for almost 1,000 years, that's all Vinland really was. It was just a story, a really cool legend for sure, but still just a legend. And then the 1960s happened, and a shocking discovery changed absolutely everything. Just take a second and look at this timeline. It's kind of mind-blowing. On one end, you've got the sagas talking about events from around the year 1000. And on the other end, 1960. That's when we got the first piece of solid physical proof. We're talking about a gap of almost 1,000 years. It's just an incredible example of how archaeology can reach back across centuries and say, you know what? That old story, it was true. So what was this game-changing proof? It was a place in Newfoundland, Canada called Lonzo Meadows. And this was the smoking gun, no question about it. Archaeologists uncovered the outlines of sod buildings, built in a style identical to ones in Greenland and Iceland. They found Norse artifacts, like a spindle whorl, which is huge because it proves women were there, and even iron rivets for fixing their ships. This was it. This proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Vikings made it to North America. But, and this is a big but, here comes the twist. Lonzo's Meadows proved the sagas were right about the where, but it also made the story a lot more complicated. See, the evidence points to this place being more of a temporary base camp, a spot for repairs and maybe stocking up on supplies, not a permanent settlement. And here's the real kicker. There are no wild grapes in Newfoundland. None. So if this place isn't the Vinland from the stories, then where the heck is it? All right, so now the game has changed. We have proof of a North site, Lonzo Meadows, but we also know it's probably not the legendary Vinland. And with that, the hunt for the real Vinland kicked into overdrive. So modern-day investigators went straight back to the original witness statements, the sagas, and started pulling out a checklist of clues. Okay, clue number 1. Vinland literally means wine land, so you gotta have grapes. Clue number 2. The stories talk about rivers just packed with salmon. Clue 3. Fields of wild wheat or grain. And maybe the most important clue of all? Detailed accounts of their encounters with the local indigenous peoples, who they called Skraelings. And this is where the detective work gets really interesting. And kind of frustrating. You look at the potential locations, and none of them are a perfect match. Newfoundland? We've got the hard archaeological proof right there, but no grapes. Okay, what about further south, like New Brunswick or maybe even Cape Cod? Well, they've got the wild grapes and salmon, which fits the story perfectly, but we have yet to find a single solitary Norse artifact there. Not one. So it's like we have different pieces of the puzzle, but they just won't fit together. And we absolutely cannot forget this critical piece of the puzzle. The sagas make it very clear. This wasn't an empty land. They describe all these complex interactions with the indigenous peoples who were already there. And you know what? It seems like it was the constant conflict with them, not a lack of food or resources, that was probably the real reason the Norse just couldn't make a permanent settlement stick. It might just be the answer to why the whole Vinland dream eventually fell apart. So here we are. The case is still wide open. We've got conflicting witness statements from the sagas, a confirmed crime scene at Lonso Meadows that just raises more questions, and a bunch of promising leads that have all turned into dead ends. So why? Why are we still so obsessed with this 1,000-year-old mystery? Well, I think it really boils down to a few key things. First, there's just the simple allure of the unknown, right? We all love a good mystery, a puzzle that hasn't been solved. Then there's the huge cultural impact this story has had. It's become a huge part of people's identity and inspires so many adventure stories. And finally, it really just taps into that fundamental human spirit of discovery, of wanting to know what's over the next horizon. And the legacy of this Vinland story is just huge. It's not just a footnote. For so many people with Nordic heritage, it's a foundational story, a powerful symbol of their ancestors' courage. But more than that, it's a story that forces all of us to rethink our assumptions. It reminds you that history isn't just a dusty old book full of facts. It's alive. It's a mystery that's still unfolding. Which leaves us with one last tantalizing question. Think about it. Lonso Meadows was only discovered in the 1960s. That's within the lifetime of many people watching. So who's to say what's next? What could a new satellite image reveal, or a lucky find by an archaeologist digging in the right place at the right time? The full truth of Leif Erikson's journey, it's still out there. It's just waiting to be found.